right, welcome back to the Fake Friends podcast. This is episode 12.
11. I think 11.
11. Yeah. 11, 12.
I can't count. So
I'm not. Yeah. We do have a special guest with us today. Before we get into that, we do want to mention quick little information. In every episode, in the link in our description, we do provide our information to our social media, album that's out for release, Dark Days, Brighter Nights, and where you can find us and contact us as far as Instagram and whatnot. And with that out the way, we are welcoming in Gray, who is a young music producer out the Bay Area, correct?
Yep, out the Bay Area.
Right on. So talk to us. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Just like same old stuff, making beats, trying to network, you know. Same.
Oh, yeah.
Same stuff.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's there, too.
How long you kind of been taking it serious, making music, making beats?
I say by now, almost 2 years. I think it'll be 2 years in February.
Yeah.
So it's been
pretty self-taught.
Yeah, completely self-taught.
Yeah.
Just off YouTube, off the internet money tutorials, off all that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
You and my man Jared here probably have something in common. What DAW do you use often?
I use FL Studio.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, funny story for myself is, that's what I started out on, doing the good old, beats, all that stuff. And one day, one of our, what was Lenny? What was his role?
He was an instructor, right?
He wasn't a teacher, right?
He was a lab tech, something like that. Yeah.
So I was using FL probably from like 2006 or 7 up until like 2011-ish. And then I ran into this dude, and he was familiar with me and Steph for doing music. And he was showing me Ableton one day, and he was like, "Hey man, I was just like you, bro, using FL." He's like, "One day you're gonna make, dance music, and you're gonna be writing like Ableton." I was like, "Yeah, get lost, buddy. Fucking FL gang till I die." And here I am using Ableton, making dance music. But no, it's cool. FL is awesome. I used to get a lot of shade when I got into music. A lot of people used to make fun of people being like, "You use Fruity Loops to make your music." It's like, dude, that's all there is, man. That's all there is to use. So yeah, and then it was like, I want to say Hit Boy and like Boy Wonder were the ones that kind of brought in
blew it up. They made it like popular. Be like, this is cool to use. And then you had the whole Lex Luger takeover when Lex Luger,
those guys,
booming, those guys, the 808s heavy. But that kind of brings me to what I wanted to kind of talk to you about a little bit is, your process and what that kind of entails. And I see, because I keep up with you, that, and then I see you do a lot of collabs with other producers or other like kind of beat makers in a sense in terms of getting beats out there to people. How does that whole process go for you?
I mean, typically I have a lot of producers who send me loops to my email. They have like weekly loops that they send out. Mm-hmm. And so I have like a select group of loop makers. So I'll typically just take one of their melodies for like the artist that I want to use it for. So recently I've been making a lot of stuff for people like YG and like that type of like mainstream West Coast music. So I've been trying to find those types of loops. So I'll take the loop, throw it in the DAW, then I'll just add drums onto it. And recently, I've just been kind of trying to figure out, like drums-wise, like I just not to force it like at all, just to kind of just just get an idea in your head and just go with it and try not to change too much, because then I feel like the drums end up being like more catchy and not so robotic. Which like with using FL, I feel like that's like really common with a lot of producers now, like the YouTube producers. I feel like a lot of them can just be really robotic.
I think sometimes when you have a workstation that provides you a step sequencer as like your main arranger, we know you feel like you got to fill in space where there's space, and sometimes you just you can leave that for the artist to do with a flow. And I think that's like kind of what you're talking, attesting to where I think simplicity is a lot better, especially on these West Coast type beats, right? Where it's not a lot of musical notation going on in it when it comes to the actual rhythm and percussion of it. So that's pretty cool. But I'm interested in that. Like I said, this is all new to us in a sense. The whole producer collab, like you said, kind of loops and stuff like that, and how that works with your records to artists to use and stuff like that. So how does that, process go, or who have you been able to play some records with?
Well, if the artist is like really big and I want to try to work with them, I'll try to contact their producers and I'll try to send loops to them, because then eventually if you just keep sending loops, something's going to get placed eventually. That's what I did with this one artist. Have you heard of J.I. the Prince of New York?
J.I. the Prince? Nah, I'm old, man. We're old.
Yeah. He's like a up and coming artist out of New York. He signed to Interscope, but
out of New York.
Yeah,
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah. And I really just liked his sound, so me and my homie started making loops for his producers, and we'd send them out weekly. And then they just throw drums on it. And I think I have a couple with them. I don't really know yet. Like, I'm just waiting to see if like he's gonna preview a snippet or something. But it's so different now, because you could either be like a drum guy or a loop guy or a sample guy, and then like go off of that.
So like let's say there's elements to making a record, and you're saying that you kind of can pave your own way by just mastering one element to a record and collabing with a handful of producers. Kind of all are these other producers kind of all in your same age range in terms of like where you guys are all at in life in general?
Not really, to be honest. Like some of the guys I work with are 25, some of them are 14. Like some of them are 30. Like it's all random. Everyone's just trying to get like the same goal, try to get placements, it's all just fast. You got to just keep up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would assume that takes a lot of time just sitting in your room making records every day.
So is this like a because you mentioned earlier like your part, like you get loops from like either your friends or like other producers that you are a part of this like little, I'm assuming you guys are like an online, I don't want to say like clique, but it's almost like your own personal like splice, right? Something like that, where you guys kind of just work with each other
like
to
a
share
library.
Ideas. Yeah, like a library. And then, so you don't know, you've never going into like that, you never knew any one of these producers personally. You just kind of all met online.
Yeah, we all met online, but then eventually, like, I started to build relationships with the people, and I really get to know them. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's crazy.
Like, the best example I have for that is my friend Wesley, and I met Wesley in like a comment section on Instagram, and he's like, "Oh, I make beats too," and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like, send me some stuff." I was working on a pack for like One Take J at the time, so I was like, "Send me some loops for One Take J." He's like, "Oh yeah, for sure." So he sent me loops, and then he just kept sending me stuff, and we just kept talking and talking. And like, we eventually met up in LA in like April, like a while later. So it was just crazy. We'd go in all these sessions. It's crazy how like we met like in Instagram like comment section.
I was gonna say, imagine that's like, where'd you guys meet? We met in the comment section of Instagram post. That's wild. That's a crazy time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's strange. Talk more about that in terms of the sessions. I know we talked before. You have been in some sessions down in LA. How do those go when you kind of get to finally work in person with people you've been kind of collaborating with online?
It's really cool. I'd say my favorite sessions are with Money Sign Suede, who's an artist that I've been working with a lot like recently. But I produced like the first song, I co-produced it, that he dropped when he got out of jail, and like we just kept working. And then I was like, "Yo, I'm in LA for this whole month." He's like, "Oh, slide to the studio." And so then we finally got to meet, and like I was in there with him like almost every day. We were just knocking out song after song. It's fun. Like, it didn't even feel like a job or anything. We were in there for 10 hours a day, and it just like felt like nothing.
And so when you go into those type of sessions, how much is it where you have already, kind of library of records to play for, to pick from, or you guys creating on the spot in a sense for something that he's tailored to that, the artist might have an idea, something he wants, or you kind of just giving him like a buffet?
I'd say most of the time I'd make stuff before the session, but the times when I would make stuff like on spot, like those would end up being my favorite records. Cause like I got to see like the whole process was there in the room, like within that hour or so. So it was just like Like I make the beat in like 5-10 minutes. He's like, oh yeah, this hard. He'd write to it and then he'd record it, bang it out.
And you're what,
awesome.
16? Yeah, it is. 16,
Yeah,
16?
16.
16, yeah.
That's awesome.
I think that's pretty cool that you get to experience that kind of like, you know, now. And it's only going to give you kind of foundation to keep doing it more and more. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, I think it's interesting, like you said, the way that you guys kind of collab online, and then it organically happens to where you kind of get to link up in person and these relationships are built, you know. And then now when it comes to like producing and, you know, actually, like you said, it didn't feel like a job, but making it to where it's a career path for you. How does that turn out for you when it comes to getting paid for your work? And how's that whole process?
It's complicated. Like,
yeah.
It's so complicated. Like I remember I was in school and I had to tell my math teacher I needed to call my attorney to like talk about some contract for Suede's tape, and he looked at me so funny. Like it was just like I don't even know how to explain it. Like I don't really understand it like too well, but I'm trying to learn like the more of the business side to it. But it's just
that's good that you do have like some legal representation already, because a lot of times, one, that's not explained to people, so then they can get taken advantage of. And it's cool that you thought of, or the people you were working with online, to reach out to the producers of the artist, because he's a producer, whoever's producing for that artist, they're usually the closest person to that artist, instead of these like fake managers and these hype people. Because when you got to go through them, it's just all lost in translation. So it's cool that, you know, if you are working some pretty genuine producers, they're going to know that, hey, we didn't come up with this our own. They're going to, you know, give credit where credit's due, and, you know, make sure you get paid for your work, because that's important. You know, everyone wants to eat off their art. So that's awesome. And for being only 16, I mean, shit, you got a great start to what you're doing. So that's awesome.
And and like you said, you're trying to figure it out in terms of, you know, making sure you are getting what you're, you know, worth in terms of value and time and paid for your work. And I don't think the process ever gets simple in a sense, because you know, there's really no flat fee that's a standing rate, that's a going rate for producers when it comes to making records, depending on who you're working with, when you work with them, or who, you know, where this record goes, etc. And so you know, that legal representation that you have now is key, I think. And then also, like you said, kind of understanding for yourself what it is exactly you should be paid for. And with that, I kind of want to ask, you know, being 16, like what, you got out of school today at 3:00, and, you know, and you come home and make some records. What is it that you think you should be paid for as a producer right now? Like where you're at, like what's your kind of goal that you're trying to attain?
What do you mean?
Like, so I know for us, we were, when we were in college, in a sense, making records together, we had like this idea of, we make records, we send them to people, and they use them. And there will be times, depending on, say, the artist, we're like, hey, if so-and-so uses this and we just get credit for it, that's great, because this is the artist that's known and we'll get credit, and that might lead to something else. And then there's times where we would work with local artists and be like, hey, this is what we're charging, and we would get paid for that, in a sense. And I think sometimes, people in general might jump into making music as an artist or a producer, and then there's like I don't know if there's a long-term or a short-term goal in terms of what it is they're trying to attain, and then they obtain it, and then they don't know what to do after that, because they like, oh, I just made a beat and I got paid for it. And I think that kind of puts either a ceiling on it, or some people have no ceilings on where they want that to go, if that makes sense. So like, what is it that you and what you're doing right now is like the ultimate goal that you want to attain for producing music?
I just want to be able to like live off of just being happy with music, whether that's being an A&R, like being a producer in A&R. I just want to stay involved with music one way or another. And I feel like going on to like what you were saying about like the local artists and like the bigger artists, I'd rather get paid from like a label than having to charge a local artist. Because especially if it's like a local artist that I really like and I just want to like build a relationship with them, because then eventually, hopefully, they'll get signed and then the label will pay me. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thought process. Yep, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of tradition. I think, you know, you hear stories about up and coming artist kind of working with an unknown producer, and then that artist makes a song that blows up, and now that producer is kind of just, you know, tagging along in a sense when it comes to getting paid because the records that he made for him, he or she made for him, kind of blew up. And so that's what I was, you know, kind of getting at. I think there's this like misconception where you might make a beat, you make a record, and even if it's a collab record that you made with somebody and a well-known artist uses it and people are like, hey, that's your record, you should be like paid a whole bunch of money. And I just don't think, you know, it's understood it works that way from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could probably attest to that from some of the more well-known artists that you might have had some placements with.
Yeah, for sure. Like with the Suede record, like he only dropped it on YouTube right now, but he's gonna drop it on like all DSPs soon, and like we're gonna get credit and paid for that. But like it's just cool watching him like grow slowly, because it's like I feel like he could really blow up. Because like that I'm Back song, the one he dropped when he got out of jail, is almost at like 1.3 million views. And so it's just like, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah. I don't mean this in a negative way. I just think that's crazy because I don't know anything about it. But like I know that and this is one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, is because I know that there's a whole, I don't know if I want to say generation or community, but like I'm very naive to like new music sometimes, and naive to this whole community of, you know, popular music amongst, I'd say, high school kids. And I think it's really interesting the way that there is kind of just, you know, space for you, like somebody like you, to produce and navigate and actually get paid for it, and artists without even somebody who's in our generation or age bracket know who they are, you know. And I think it was never like that before. I feel like somebody who was 35 to 40 knew the same rappers that an 18-year-old, 16-year-old kid did, because that's all that there was. And now since there is so many to work with, there's space for you to kind of make a living with it, which is, I think, is very, you know, very unique in itself.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's kind of cool because you can kind of create your own wave and like just be your own self with like an artist that you really like and listen to.
So when you're, you know, you like, as you mentioned earlier, you're saying, oh, like I'm kind of like this YG move with creating and stuff. But for the most part, if you weren't thinking of any particular artist and you were just kind of thinking for yourself, like if you had how often do you sit down to create a sound, a track, a beat, whatever you want to call it, that is like, you know, you might not perform on it, but it's like, you're not trying to maybe be in that lane of a certain artist, even if it does end up sounding like that. But like, you know, because we once used to strictly just make demo records. We were like that all the time with like, oh, we want to make a sound like this or that, or for this artist. So we used to create in that process too. But like, what do you feel like your sound is if you were to just strictly think, oh, for me, like Gray, you know, take us through that process.
Because you at one point were rapping, right?
Yeah, but like it was like okay. Joke. But
yeah, but you know what? That's like your introduction to what you're doing now. Like that got you into producing. You got introduced to music, and then you were like, oh, that's what I want to do, you know? So might have been a joke at the time, but it got you to where you want to be going now. So
yeah, that's true. It's true. I'd say if I was just to make like beats for myself just to listen to, I'd either make like some like Detroit stuff. Like I love Detroit music. Like it's mostly what I listen to like in like my free time. Or just like, I'd say my sound is like the sound I've created with Suede. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like West Coast. Yeah, it's just like I don't know how to describe it, but
okay.
Like West Coast stuff is like mainly what I focus on.
And when you say Detroit, name a few artists that you kind of referring to.
Baby Smooth, 42 Doug.
40. Okay, all right. I know one. I know 42 Doug.
Like T Grizzly, like that kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's real gritty.
Yeah,
it's real gritty and in your face. That is. I kind of worked out the 42 Doug's album, so I get it. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. If you had a preference right now, artist that you kind of like, man, I really wish I could work with that person, who would it be?
I would say Bryson Tiller, or Black. I love R&B music, but I feel like I just need to get better at those types of beats before I start like reaching out.
Well, hold on. I know that's always the first thing to say, but honestly, you just need them to sing on whatever you're making now. In all honesty, because I used to feel like that too.
It's R&B music.
Because I used to think like that. In like 2010, 11, I was making some music, we were producing stuff, and I used to say, "Oh, no one would ever sing on this." And someone that was in the room with me, another like producer at our school, was like, "What do you mean? Like Beyonce could sing on this?" I was like, "Huh? Like really?" But just hearing that, being like, "Oh wow, someone could sing on this." So, who's to say Bryson Tiller can't? I don't know your catalog, but or Black can't already. I mean, if you already make probably what's West Coast, probably some up tempo stuff. Yeah, they're kind of on some slower stuff, but man, them singing on whatever you make them probably sound fire for sure.
That is a great point. To kind of touch on it.
And I know R&B has some certain harmonies and chord progressions and stuff that you could touch on, like what what's his name, DJ Mustard started doing. We started working with.
I mean, he produced the whole LMA. He produced the whole R&B record.
But all it takes is them just singing on it to be R&B.
Yeah. This is very true. Yeah, he could have some.
Yeah, that's dope. Bryson Tiller, man. I mean, I feel like the last album he dropped, no one really gave it attention besides like his fans. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I remember.
That's an interesting,
he's kind of like back to like a small cult following artist, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know he's popular. I know people know him, but I don't know. It's interesting.
My personal opinion on somebody like him is, I don't want to say outdid himself, but I think it's very hard for him to match what he first put out. I think his impact on his first, impression was very, very big. Sometimes people make a record that's bigger than them. And like, so when you put out records that are bigger than who you are at the time, it's really hard to, follow that up. Kind of like LMA, your record's so big for your first record, you don't get a chance to kind of grow. And then the fans know that record. And so then when you try to come back, it's like, hey, we still don't really kind of know you, and you're putting new music out, and we only know and like what we already have. So I think it's hard for an artist to grow when his impact was huge in 2015, 2014. His first album was like, it was big, and nothing's kind of measured up to that. As opposed to when you look at some artists who kind of grow, where their first, record might not be as impactful, but it attracts some fans, like Blast. Somebody like Blast is probably a great example where, his first records aren't huge, but he has a very, cult following right now to where he's going to be able to grow to a point where, you're not going to kind of have a fall off, I think, in a sense of like what feels like attention. People aren't going to not pay attention because of the way he's kind of grown to this presence he has now. Bryson Tiller, who I kind of think compares to somebody like Blast when it comes to songwriting and the type of music they make, it's very hard when your first record's so impactful, big. I can't remember who it was. I was watching some interview and they were talking about it wasn't an R&B singer, but they were like the record's bigger than the artist. And I just, that always kind of stuck with me, because like when the record is bigger than who the person is, it's like, well, how does the artist follow that up? Because you're known for the record. You're not known for being an artist. Black even talks about that, I think, on his first album, where he was, he's like, in one of his interludes, he was saying something about labels wanting to make a certain record. And he's like, I don't want the record that, sure, it might be a guaranteed top 10 record, because then I become bigger than, the record becomes bigger than me as the artist. And then nobody's going to care about me as an artist. So yeah, it's probably an interesting space he's in right now. Bryson Tiller, at least. But back to your point, Jared, you're right. If you want to make R&B music, here's the other thing too, that we kind of, started doing. You create what you want to create, and not so much what you think other people want you to create, if that makes sense. So like we would we put out a whole album that has records on it that are like, this is what we think people want or like, or gonna like, as opposed to just what it is we may like as, artists ourselves. And I think if you want to make R&B music, then you tailor that to what it is you like. And that's considered R&B music. It's not so much that you got to get better at it. It's just like, this is my perception, because there's no right or wrong way to do anything when it comes to creating art. So it's just your perception on what you like as R&B music. You could definitely take like a basis and take a record you like, kind of recreate that record, and then put your own twist on it and go from there. And then you'll find yourself making your own spins on everything. Yeah, that's just kind of a way to look at it.
So before you really started, you said it was about 2 years you've been taking production seriously, was it?
Yeah.
So before about that? Okay, so right when you first started getting into it and learning about it, who are some producers that kind of got you excited about wanting to be a part of the creation process from this side of it? Not so much writing, but more so writing the music and not the lyrics.
I'd say Ladiano, who's like a West Coast producer. All of the Internet Money people. I don't really like look up to them as much anymore, but they definitely were there when I first started. Let me think. Ron and Ace the Face. We are both like Shoreline Mafia's producers.
I love how you're naming people. I have
no idea. This is one of the reasons I want. Yeah,
I think
when I told him, I was like, we got to get him on here. This is great because like he's gonna name. I was like, he's gonna name a bunch of people that we've never heard of, and I know that, you know, just because we never heard of them doesn't mean like that. Like I'm sure if I go ask somebody else who this producer is, and be like, yeah, you know, they made this record. I'd be like, oh wow, I know that record, but I didn't know who. When before, we would know like. I don't know, who would you name? Oh yeah, Cool and Dre made this record. Or oh wow, so and so. Who's the
Stargate?
Stargate. Somebody. Yeah, we would know producers that made, you know, certain big records. And I know that I'm just a little out of touch when it comes to that because, like I said, I think it's kind of. I don't know if I'm getting old or I just think there's like a new wave of generation of producers that exist when it comes to actually making records that do have impacts on certain, you know, certain followings. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, really, I'd say really like Metro too.
Yeah,
that's like a big one.
And he's somewhat similar to yourself. I mean, he was a few years removed from where he started placing big records because he kind of grew up with like the Future movement and I think it was like Juicy J maybe or someone, but he started placing records when he was like 20 or 19. He was in college, I think, and he started making like his run for where he's at now. So yeah, it's awesome.
Speaking of someone like that, who would you consider to be kind of like a pioneer, or I guess an old guy, an old head in kind of the realm of production and the process in which you kind of work right now? If that makes, for example, like somebody that I'd say that we kind of would consider to be kind of doing it for a while in a more style of way or more way that we would operate would be like a Cool and Dre or like a Timberland type producer, you know, where these, you know, it wasn't so much an online connection and collaboration. It was I'm a producer, I got my own stuff, and here I'm working with this artist. You know, who would you kind of consider the kind of pioneer that whole new wave of operating and working with other producers, or, you know, kind of online to get placements and stuff like that?
I think like the obvious answer would be like Internet Money. They they were really big on like using loops and like collaborating because they have like 50 producers in their group.
Yeah, and who they had. Who was the artist that kind of took them off?
It was Juice WRLD with Lucid Dreams, right?
Lucid Dreams, was that Internet? Okay,
I would say yeah, because that was Nick Mira and DT.
Nick Mira, yeah.
They work with. Did they work with what's the other kid? The Tekka dude, Lil Tekka also.
Lil Tekka too. He also. Yeah.
I like because I remember his first. Was it his first one? I caught on to him a little late, but I kind of like his whole, you know, I like the way I like his energy and what he brings, and I can, you know, it's definitely a sound. It's a sound that exists that you can tell is that.
That's them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But outside of them, you know, like you said, they had 50 producers, so it's like everybody Internet Money then when it comes to like, you know, kind of the way this operation of collabing online and stuff like that and working with people.
I just say they kind of like made it like acceptable, but if there's like any other producers, I feel like all the big producers now do it. Like,
yeah, you know, that's a good point.
Yeah. I think like I see like Pyrex. Do you know who Pyrex Whip is?
I think I've heard of Pyrex.
Like and then like Wheezy.
Maybe I've heard the tags. I've probably heard the tags. Yeah.
Like Wheezy does like a lot of Young Thug and Gunna stuff.
Yep.
So like. And he has his own like production group, and they just send him loops, and he just cooks up to them.
You know what's interesting about that is I feel like what it does. What the best thing about it is remove this like what used to exist, this ghost producer. Because you would have
still
kind of,
exists.
yeah, I know. Well, I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but I think it's kind of removed this, like I was saying, the producers that might be older might not have collabed with other people because they were like, this is me, like this is my sound type stuff. And I think like this online collaboration that exists now, like you said, makes it more acceptable to be like, yeah, so and so made this and I made this with so and so. And even in that, I'm sure there is some people who don't get credited for certain things.
Definitely.
But like you said, I think that it's absolutely more acceptable to where now you might have 5 guys on one production, on one record, when before those 5 guys might have made the record, but one guy was getting the credit.
Yeah, I had a song placed with the artist named OMB Peasy, and there's 4 people on it, and he's like
I know him. Yeah, from the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, like kinda. He's from Alabama, but
but he signed to like E40, I think, at one point, and then
maybe at one point he signed at 300 now. But
yeah, I remember when him and I think Nephi Pharaoh was they were kind of running together, and he was signed to like Stick With It at one point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mobile, Alabama, I think.
Yeah. So I did
4
a record.
guys.
Yeah, we made the beat over Zoom.
Love it.
Yeah, you could like edit the FL Studio like through the Zoom. It was pretty sick.
That's pretty cool.
Oh wow.
Yep. You can like share the screen and make it interactive. And
exactly.
That's I can't. I mean, I know how to use Zoom, but I can't tell you that I would know how to navigate in that world of collaborating. I think like we work together and we kind of have our own ways in terms of working together. But I just really think that's a unique and interesting and effective way to kind of collaborate with other producers to make music now, since it's so digital in a sense. And I think that's, pretty soon you might have like a NFT of a session, a music session, a beat making session. Like if I'm a producer, you could sell like, hey, this session for this record that's huge is an NFT and you can own it, which is pretty. Somebody might run with that.
That's a great idea.
I don't know. We only have like 25 people that might listen to this, but somebody should take that and run with it.
I might do that.
Yeah.
I think we should all do that, honestly.
Because the fact that you can do that kind of just online is if the record gets big enough, imagine let's say for hip hop, imagine a Young Thug record. The producer selling an NFT for that session. No different than kind of like what Kanye just did with his stem player, where you can kind of make his records your own with the stem player and listen to him how you want. That'd be kind of interesting. So it's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So that Suede record, it was I'm Back, the one that has like 1 million views. That's the one you were part of producing?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I just went to your Instagram to check it out. And you had the YouTube link in there. I know I need to get familiar with your catalog. I feel like Steph, a few years ago, you sent us to one of our emails some beats before, and it sounded like you were on the right track for sure. I remember I was like, oh man, who made this? And am I right? Is this, am I remembering? Is this the right person?
That's him. That's him.
Oh, so-and-so. You met his dad, and I was like, oh, really? I was like, oh, that's what's up. Sounds good.
That was a while ago too. That's when he was still kind of just like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you knew what you were doing. Yeah, you definitely knew more than you thought you were doing for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure. Speaking to that, I'm sure now you've got a really probably efficient workflow. Can you real quick kind of attest to kind of how that has grown and where it's at now?
I mean, I used to just like overthink everything and just like take like way too long and stuff. And now I'll hear the right loop or right melody in my head, and everything will just come out. And like I'll check, like you could see how long it took in FL Studio, how long the project's been open. And I was like, damn, that probably took me like 40 minutes. I'll look, it says 10. And I'm just like, what? Like 10 minutes? And I arranged the whole thing, mixed it, and it sounds good. I'm just like, wow. Like,
I think when it does,
a good feeling.
Yep. When it just comes, and it happens quick, fast. I think that's the organicness of, really makes it real organic and authentic. So that's pretty cool. Not to hold you up too much longer, but we do I don't know what we would do it for this one, but we got to think of one. We do a segment.
Well, real quick,
go ahead.
Before we get there, I do got a good question though. So moving forward? Because it seems like, you got a little ball rolling. I don't want to say little, but you got a nice ball rolling to where you're getting yourself more established with these artists and your name out there. 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, where would you like to hope to see your production career at, and maybe expanding upon over the next, like 5 years?
I'd really like to see me go more into like mainstream trap, so I could get songs with like Young Thug and Gunna and like that type of stuff. Because right now, like the West Coast stuff, it's cool. It's like what I like to make, but it's not gonna like last a career. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I want to really branch out into like the Atlanta and like Chicago type of stuff.
Let me ask you this.
Dope.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because we had a guy. I don't know. I don't want to say his name. We had a guy. We were working out of a studio in Jersey a lot. We went down to this studio in LA. Now this studio is like very popular. It's like Atlantic's main studio, I think, for the most part. And we met the like studio manager there, and we told him where we had been working out of. And he made a comment that always stuck with me. He was like, "Well, you got to be in LA. There's nothing in Jersey, or there's nothing nowhere else for you to kind of do what it is you want to do." How do you think that happens, predicated on where you're located, now that you collaborate online? You know what I'm saying? So, like, do you feel like you need to be in a specific location to reach the places you want to reach?
I feel like whenever I go out to LA, I try to go out there like at least once a month. Like good stuff always just happens. Like I get a new placement with a new artist that like I couldn't get to before. Like I just went out there a couple weeks ago and I was at Mozzie's studio. Like, so it's just like that type of stuff. Like I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I wasn't in LA. And being in the Bay right now, it's like kind of hard. It's like there's nothing out here. Everyone just like.
There you go.
All right, yeah. Sorry about that. So you were talking about going to LA once a month, and you were talking about being in Mozzie's studio.
Yeah, so I feel like being in LA, like more opportunities just like fall into place. Whereas if you're in the if I'm just like at home in the Bay, it's kind of harder to like get a placement if I'm just sending stuff off of my computer. I like to like go into the studio and like meet more people. Like I remember back in July when I first got to LA, my friend texted me, he's like, "Yo, slide to the studio, Phoenix Flexin is here." And that's like Shoreline Mafia. You know, it's like one of the guys from Shoreline Mafia. Like I literally like he's right there. And I was like, oh, no way he's actually gonna be there. So I pull up and he's just there, and I like dap him up, and I was like, whoa, like I've been listening to you since 6th grade. Like I've looked like, and I was just like, wow.
That's wild.
And I wouldn't have gone to do that if I just stayed here. So it's just like, it's cool to go out to LA and like meet all these people, meet all these rappers and producers. I met Ron, I met Ladiano. I cook up with Ladiano whenever I go out there now. And that's like a producer that I really looked up to. And like, I'd be on his live videos, like, let me send you melodies like this and that. And like collab with him whenever I go out there now. It's just like, we have like a bunch of placements together. Like we have a song with Suede and Da Boy from SOB coming out hopefully soon. But like, I remember getting that one and I was like, wow, like SOB, I used to like listen to like all of their songs. It's just like now I got a song with like 2 of the people from that group. Like obviously Shoreline and SOB both broke up, but like I have like songs with like members from each of them. So it's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I can relate. Definitely can relate to that, because I would only imagine it would be like if we were to say walk into a studio with some producers that you're like, oh wow, you made hit. Like if we walked into a studio and Hit Boy was there, we probably had the same type of experience in the sense to be like, wow, I listened to your records when I was doing this, that, and the third, and now we're working together. So I think, like I said, the power of the internet to establish, and that online collaboration, and then like you said, kind of where you're at, having an effect on that initial connection to make it actual reality, I think is really cool for you. So, keep doing it, man. I think it's honestly, it's inspiring to even somebody like me who might seem to be older in a sense, but I think the fact that you're doing it now, kind of just attests to the fact that there's nothing you can't do if you continue to do it, and you never know where to go. And really in music, I think that's something that's not just music, entertainment in general. I think that kind of is what gets misconstrued, is the reason it doesn't happen for a lot of people is because at some point they just stop doing it, you know, no matter when you started. So definitely keep that going.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have much else. Like I said, I was trying to get to the hill, but I don't know what hill. I don't know what hill we create here, because I don't really have anything that's debatable in a sense, you know. If anything, you know, to give it a little humor, I'll tell you that I don't even know if this is debatable, because, like you said, this is hard. So, the online collaboration is really interesting to me. But like you just attested to the fact that there's still a you know, an in-person, like a tangible factor that comes into play to actually make these placements really happen. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you kind of meet new people, you're establishing these kind of relationships with people, and so I tell you what, if I was picking a hill to die on, then I'd die on.
I got a great one.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, before my time is up, somebody's definitely selling a beat making session as an NFT. That's coming. That's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, think about it. If you could watch a YouTube video of somebody making a beat, somebody's definitely going to sell it as an NFT at some point. That's the hill I'm gonna die on, for sure. I don't have another one. You know, what you got?
I got to go on. Yeah, I mean, because hearing how you reached out to these artist producers and, you know, going directly to the source. I will always die on this hill is there are way too many middlemen and women and people in general in the music industry that want to feel fucking important, that add no business and creativity to the creation process. There is no value. Yeah. So by you going right to the source of the artist or the producer that works right directly with the artist, that's awesome. It's very smart. And I die on this hill. There are a lot of positions in the music industry that aren't necessary, that people claim that need to be there just so they can make money off our work and whoever's work. Power to the artists and the producers and also engineers. The creative people, they deserve a lot more love than they actually get. And I will always die on that hill. Because A&Rs back in the day the roles were much different. They actually developed artists. Now they're just like, hey, dog, send me beats, dog. I'm the artist's best friend. I know what's best. And then they got to get green lights from the label and all this stuff. So yeah, get those unnecessary people out the room and let the creators create, you know?
Yeah, this is true. That role definitely has changed. Real quick, speaking of that, it actually kind of brings me up to the question I did have about these like relationships that you kind of create in person or you meet up with people. How often do you come across, let's say, who would be considered their A&R of the artist or the other, you know, producer or whatever, in a sense, actually in the studio that actually plays a factor into making things happen for that artist? Would you say?
Suede's A&R is this guy named Gary who's at Atlantic. Or he just helps him out a lot. I don't know if it's actually Suede's A&R, but he is A&R. And he's always in Suede sessions, like helping him. He's like, oh, that doesn't sound that good. Like, change this. But like, he's always helping out.
Because I think
who's that dude's name at Atlantic? Who's his last name?
Gary Leon.
Yeah.
Yep. That's him.
We met him. Yeah, we met him. Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah. So
we know.
I've gone like.
He used to work with Sean Barron.
Yeah, I used to work with Sean Barron.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he helps out with a lot of Suede stuff, and like we've been working. Like I've sent him packs before, but met him a bunch of times. He's cool.
Yeah. No,
that's good.
I think sometimes artists, and maybe the artists do it more, but like they'll have, you know, a clique, a group, a crew, and they kind of just, somebody gets placed the label of A&R, basically to act as, like you said, that middleman, to be like, hey, I'm the artist. I don't want people sending me a whole bunch of stuff. Have them send it to you. You're my A&R. You cipher through these beats and you pick out some beats that you think are hard. I think that kind of dilutes the process for the producer and artist, you know, relationship, in a sense to where that artist might have liked something that the A&R didn't produce and you just might have missed on something. And kind of now you're filtering down the artist in terms of what it is that artist is able to work with. And that's where I think, like you were saying, Jared, there's unnecessary middleman when it comes to actually the creation process. I don't want to say an A&R is unnecessary in terms of developing that artist or getting opportunities for that artist to work with other artists and work with other producers. But the creation process of it sometimes can have too many hands in the pot. It kind of just waters it down and dilutes it, and you end up sounding like the very next person because influences are all around it. So that's interesting. Funny you did mention that name. That's probably the studio that I was talking about earlier because that's where he was working at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Well, I've been saying it for a while, but we actually are kind of getting back to. We got a project. What do we say? January or so, February. Hopefully, we got a project we're working on. We're getting back to some other things that we were doing before, and so we'll definitely, find some time to work together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this next project we're working on, we want to have out ASAP, realistically, early next year, and it's definitely in your lane of something you could definitely contribute if you'd be interested. We could send some stuff your way, see if you want to do something, talk about it, figure it out. We're easy to work with, so.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, man. And definitely before we let you go, obviously shout out anything you want to promote, but we'll definitely have you back on down the road to check in where you're at and what you're if you would like. But if you want to give a shout out, and we'll include everything in the description. So whoever checks this out can definitely follow you.
Yeah, because you said gray, or is it gray, like Gray Views? Because I heard your tag before.
Oh yeah, well, it's great. My Instagram is Gray Views, GRAYVUES.
Okay.
But I think I'm just gonna start going by Gray, just because it's easier.
Cool.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, all right.
Well,
thank you guys.
I'm gonna wrap that up.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.